Jesus is standing with his disciples in front of the temple, the center of everything that was sacred and central in their lives, and telling them it was going to come down. The disciples were remarking on the giant nature of the stones at the foundation, at their very permanence. And Jesus was saying, a new time is coming, and this symbol, this institution, it's going to fall. Jesus did not apologize for this hard news. He didn't say, wow, you've already sacrificed so much, left so much, and now I'm telling you your very foundation is going to be upturned amidst incredible strife and suffering. No. He said all that calamity would be like birth pangs. He said it was necessary in order to birth something beautiful and new. There can be no doubt that the idea of brokenness, of things being broken and then healed or mended, of the need for weekly confession, of the whole cycle of birth and death and resurrection, it all acknowledges that we are broken. And in order to keep evolving as individuals, as communities, we have to keep repairing and recognizing that when we are broken, when we are on the process of being torn down or wrestling with something, well, it is often in these times that we learn the most, that we grow. Being broken, in truth, is an opportunity. Leonard Cohen wrote, "Ring the bells that still can ring, forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in." And it's true that our moments of being cracked are often when we most grow. But what about when everything gets turned on its head, as it has with COVID? As Stephanie Spelling asks, what is the church when you can't come in a building? What is beloved community when being together is literally dangerous? And what is America, as we realize that every structure and institution within it has been founded on white supremacy and racism? COVID and government warring and racial reckoning have cracked us open. COVID has taken so much. Grandparents and heroes and children who should have lived longer, who had more to give, who were loved. 740,000 of our fellow citizens. It has taken so much, weddings and funerals and birthdays. It has cracked us open. We are broken, and we are perhaps more aware of that brokenness than ever before. And the question becomes, will we rise? Will we rise different? Will the church recover its relevance? Will the United States regain its global power? I do not know. I do not even know if they should. I don't like this gospel. No one likes this gospel. Yesterday, the Desperate Preacher website was filled with terrified people griping, wondering if they could just preach on Hebrews or disappear for a Sunday. But this is a reading to grapple with, because the world will end, and end time will come. It's an important reading because it begs the question, what do you do in face of all this brokenness? Yours and your friends and your countries and your church. It seems like there are two possible responses. One is to wring your hands and work to get back to normal. That's what everybody keeps saying, right? I just want everything to be normal. The other is to create something new, discern something new. To me, it's quite like the line in the Our Father where we say, "Thy kingdom come." There's a startling question to ask yourself every time you say the prayer. Do you really want the kingdom right now? I mean, for a lot of us, it's pretty comfortable right now. We have nice houses and nice books and nice movies and nice children. Things are going pretty well. But we have to stop and ask ourselves, do we want the kingdom to come right now with all that upheaval? See, the desire for the kingdom looks pretty good when your life is when things are good. But when life is miserable, it's just right there. It's what you need. And what I like about the prayer is it turns on itself. It becomes a way of praying for other people, for the world. Because you cannot be completely happy when so many people on the planet are cold or alone or hungry or addicted or refugees. Asking for the kingdom to come is asking for a role of justice for everyone. You won't be the exception. You'll be the rule. But the idea of all that messiness and tumultuousness, it's frightening. And Jesus knew that. Theologians talk about the inbreaking of Jesus' kingdom, not just that it was inserted into time, but that it broke things open. Jesus himself said that you could not put new wine in old wineskins. Those old wineskins had to be thrown away. The vineyard owner had to rip everything down and start again. The church has come to call it holy disruption. On Friday night at Diocesan Convention, Dr. Catherine Meeks spoke to us online. She was powerful. She has done so much to look at how we are broken and how we can build something new. She told us, she says to herself, "You're not going to fix this mess, but you can stay faithful because God is faithful to us." That's God's promise, his one promise. God is here, holding us all the time. I love that, and I love that she acknowledges that there's just one promise. God does not promise safety. God does not promise wealth. God does not promise ease. God only promises God's presence day in and day out. Once when I was in church, there was a preacher who talked about his son falling out of the back of the car on a highway. According to him, he grabbed his Bible and ran down the street yelling, "God, you promised me that if I was faithful, you would protect me and those I loved." His son was fine, which he saw as proof of his faith. But I sat there in the pew steaming. What of all the children who fell out of cars who weren't fine? What about all the children who died in one horrible way or another? Were their parents to blame for not being faithful enough? It's like people who are told that their cancer will go away if they can manifest, if they can think positively. It's terrible, terrible theology. Like God is someone you pay off. I believe in prayer, but not as a way of staving off the hand of doom. What I believe in is acknowledging that we are broken. When we acknowledge that we are broken, we acknowledge that we feel a million different things. We acknowledge that there are a million different possibilities. We acknowledge that God is in charge, that we are dependent and imperfect and lost. Recently, I had a conversation with a 14-year-old girl who was breaking down after my class. She felt like she didn't fit in. She felt like she didn't know anything, that she was going to disappoint everyone. She said she felt uncomfortable in her own skin, anxious, alone, afraid. She was someone who has spent years and years assuring everyone that she was perfect. Perfect grades, perfect clothes, perfect responses. And she was tired. But the idea of displaying anything else was frightening. It was my job in that moment to tell her that her brokenness was a beautiful thing, that she was loved, and that things would be clearer. She was cracked open, as we all are, and she needed to give herself permission to fall apart just a little, to let other people know she was suffering, that she couldn't be perfect anymore. Next week, I said, you and I are going to stage something where you drop a book in class and yell out a terrible swear word. She looked horrified. I could never do that. Everyone would be shocked. You would give me detention. I've never had detention. I could never do that. I would not give you detention, though detention would be good for you. It would be over in about 5 seconds. A bunch of the boys would yell out, "What? What? Clarissa said a swear word? Ooh!" And then it would be over, and you would not be perfect. The greatest thing was the delight on her face, the curiosity. She was intrigued. The world is in a giant, messy upheaval. We can all get rid of our perfection for a little time. It's not easy to admit our brokenness. Somehow, as we are cracking open, as we should be sharing in our holy disruption, we have become instead far less tolerant of one another's weaknesses. People say one wrong thing, make one mistake, and they are cast out in the name of justice. I have conversations with the young teachers at my school, with my own children, with various 20-year-olds I love, really smart, really brave people, people who want to make a difference, people who believe that in order to heal, to birth something new, everything is going to have to go. Our rituals and routines, our methods of governing, our spending, our lawns, our rituals, our understanding, everything. I get exasperated in these conversations, partly because I grow frustrated with the general throw the baby out with the bathwater sentiments, with the downgrading of historical figures and moments I'm attached to, but mostly because their stances are so unforgiving. And I just don't think it can work. I don't think we can build something new, birth a new reality, if we are all not really being aware of brokenness, if we can't recognize that we all have feet of clay. The expression feet of clay comes from the story of Daniel, when he interprets Nebuchadnezzar's dream of a statue with a gold head and feet of clay. Daniel says it will not stand. The foundation is too vulnerable, too soft. It is much like what Jesus is telling the disciples, and it is the question for us today. What is the church now? What is community now? There's a moment in the Eucharist that is high drama. The priest holds up the bread and then breaks it. The wafers snap. Real bread tears. The priest holds it up at that moment for the congregation to see, to watch him or her break it. And yes, it's meant to be a reminder of the body broken for us, of Jesus' sacrifice. But it is also a reminder of our collective brokenness, of the role being broken and cracked open plays in our lives, in our spiritual lives, in our world. It is a call to reckoning with the idea that we are not whole and that God's justice is still in the process of being realized.